Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining. If I have not gotten the pleasure to meet you, my name is Alicia Garcia. I am Vice President of Real Estate for Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority. Today, we're meeting with you all virtually to discuss our draft plan that we will be submitting to HUD on May 19th of this year. So in 1 month exactly. Thank you all for joining. If you could go to the next slide, please. If you've been a part of this conversation for a year, if this is your first time joining, RRHA has received a Choice Neighborhood Initiative Planning Grant in partnership with the City of Richmond, and we brought on the Richmond Henrico Health District as well to help us with this plan. We really want this plan to be a plan of the community. So we have appreciated your voices, your comments, your feedback so far. And if you are just joining, we invite your feedback and opinions and thoughts as we continue into this planning process. So briefly, I just want to give an introduction on behalf of RRHA and the city. I do not see our CEO on. Mr. Davis, I know you're joining virtually, but would you like to give a brief introduction on behalf of RRHA? You're on mute, sir.
There we go. I was having trouble unmuting. Well, good morning or afternoon, whatever it is now. I'm actually in a different time zone, but yeah, welcome everybody to our planning meeting here. I hope you all engage in the process if you haven't been already. My name is Darrell Davis. I am the Senior Vice President of Real Estate for RRHA. I think that's about it. Welcome, and we welcome your participation.
Thank you. And on behalf of the City of Richmond, we have Maritza Pechin with us, who's been a part of this planning process. Maritza, I hand it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending your lunch hour with us. And thank you for everyone who's been a part of the process so far. I'm Maritza Pechin, and I'm a Deputy Director with the Planning Department, where I oversee the implementation of the City Master Plan. And doing this planning effort is just that. I want to say that big thanks to RRHA. The partnership between the city and RRHA has never been stronger. I've been sitting in City Hall working for the government for 7 years, and I'm really happy to say that we're working really closely together to redevelop not just this property, but also Creighton and other places. And we've fostered a really strong relationship, which is really good to see for all of us. I also really want to thank the health district, who has been vital to bring along the Gilpin Informed Residents and establish that program and administer assessments, and you're going to get to hear from them. But thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back to you, Alicia.
Thank you so much, Maritza and Mr. Davis. We could go to the next. So now I want to hand it over to a group of residents, the Gilpin Informed Residents, who Maritza just mentioned in her welcome. They have been a group that have been alongside us this process, that have been working with us for over a year now. So I'd like to hear updates from them. So I turn it over to you, Quiera, one of our Gilpin Informed Residents.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Quiera Harris. I'm actually a current resident in Gilpin Court. I'm also a senior Gilpin Informed resident. I would like to tell you a little bit about the Gilpin Informed Resident Program. It's a community-based led program amongst the current residents, as you see here, and also with our boss, Bob Becker. The main job of our program is to advocate for the tenants in Gilpin Court and the overall entire Jackson Ward as well. We take their viewpoints and we take their concerns into the redevelopment meetings with us, and it helps shape and form our ideas. I'm personally like to be part of the Gilpin Informed Resident, as I just stated, because I am a current Gilpin Court resident. Also, the Jackson Ward is my community. So it's more than a job for me. I take it personal. I have a compassion for the people of the community. And my main personal perspective is to try to minimize the gentrification that may come into the new Jackson ward. Also, a few things that I have learned since I've been part of the program is that the superior leads on the program of the redevelopment actually do take our concerns into consideration and have inputted them into the plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Quiera, and we really appreciate all of the work that our Gilpin Informed residents have done on this project. They have truly been instrumental in what we've done so far and continue to be as we go further.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next slide. Thank you. And Quiera, if you want to introduce the rest of your colleagues.
Yes, we have Miss Stephanie here. She's here with us right now. Hello. We have Miss Autumn. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today, as myself, Quiera. We have Miss Tanya. We have Miss Dream here. She's here as well. We have Miss Paula. She's not able to be here today. And again, we have our lead supervisor, Mr. Bob Beck.
Wonderful. Thank you guys. And thank you for being a part of this process with us. So we're here today to inform you all as community members about the process who may not have been a part of the process yet. We're here to share with you what we've learned in this planning process, which started about a year ago. And we're here to continue to receive your feedback on what we've been presenting. What do you like? What do you not like? And I've seen in the chat, many of you have comments to share. So we look forward to receiving that feedback at the end of the presentation today. Planning schedule wise, we kicked off last year, as I mentioned, and moving to today in spring of 23, we're here before we send that draft plan to HUD in May. That draft plan will incorporate all of the opinions and thoughts we've gathered to outline drafts and strategies, as well as moving into the implementation process that will take place for when we redevelop Gilpin Court. We will certainly continue to offer and welcome and invite feedback between May and November before the final plan is due. I also want to point out during that time, work will be taking place for the early action activity, which we anticipate to be completed by 2024 of next year. So again, we did a lot of information exchange meetings in May. We had some listening workshops later on, followed by some plan workshops where we started to really lay out the plan and going through draft goals and strategies. Today, we are here in April 23 to do the draft plan event, and another event will take place this fall to celebrate the final draft of the plan we are submitting to HUD. So to give you some background on what we've been doing in this past year, if you've been a part of this process, we did an event in June at Fay Towers, where we got into breakout rooms just to listen and to hear residents and community members' stories of the way Gilpin currently is. In the back, we also had voting that took place where residents were able to vote for what they wanted the early action activity to be, which overwhelmingly was a splash pad to be placed in the Calhoun Center Plaza, which is right next to the Calhoun Center itself. We also celebrated Jackson Ward for what it is in its history. We had a very similar event just a couple of days later at Gallery 5, where we broke out into groups to create a vision of what the community would like Jackson Ward to look like in 10 years. And we came up with the following quote, our vision. We envision a Jackson Ward that invests in the people, somewhere that builds culture from the ground up, honors history, works to change the perception of safety, and combats systemic racism. At this event, we also had the early action activity to vote, where again, the Calhoun Center splash pad and expansion of the garden that is in the park was overwhelmingly chosen. Later, we moved to having some events at the Calhoun Center where we really dove in to review the blocks of Jackson Ward, both what they look like typically and the historic side of Jackson Ward, where we got input on what amenities people would like to see, which included art, parks, places for people to enjoy of all ages. We continue to get feedback on the early action activity, which again, this is the splash pad. And we got input for the future design and style that people would like to see in the redevelopment of Gilpin. We continue to have another event in the Jackson Ward community where we had interaction stations for people to focus on the 3 components of neighborhood, people, and housing. We received further feedback on the goals and visions for Jackson Ward. And we also received insight on what people would prefer for housing density, architectural styles, and again, amenities. We continue to have events at the Calhoun Center later on, where we reviewed again draft plan goals. We had a timeline for people to interact with and to add their own memories that they have about Jackson Ward. And we learned what residents and community members want to see, really talking about access to job training, having green space for people to enjoy, and hearing that you wanted to see more space to play and enjoy rather than a corner stores. We had an additional meeting at Calhoun Center later on in February where community members interacted with stations that were about the 5 themes of this plan. And we got your feedback on the drafted vision, the themes and goals. And we also learned that there was a need for supportive housing, opportunities for home ownership. And we also got insight on what kind of materials the community would like to see in newly developed buildings. And to give you an update on the early action activity, this is a conceptual plan for the Calhoun Center Plaza. Again, it is that green space right next to the Calhoun Recreation Center. The splash pad is in that center area where you see the mouse moving around that. Thank you, Danielle. That will be a catalyst to start this whole plan for the park, which will be done by the City of Richmond Department of Parks and Rec. So we will be starting with that splash pad using funding we received from this grant to implement that activity. We have been working as a project management team to get the design development documents completed, and we're working through getting city approvals that will be necessary to be able to start this project. And we anticipate it again opening in May 2024. That may change due to different delays we may anticipate, but it will be done in 2024. And now I am going to hand it back to Quiera to talk about resident assessments.
Yes, so we have been engaging with the tenants in the Gilpin Court, mostly for almost a year now. We mostly started in the summertime through surveys. We was going door to door, asking them questions with the surveys and getting their viewpoints and their concerns and ideas. Also, we have been engaging in community events. We have taken upon ourselves as well to go in community in the recent spring months. And we take their concerns and ideas, as I said before, into everything. We always consider what their needs are and keep their viewpoints in the forefront of the redevelopment. Through the survey, we was able to get almost 500 residents' feedback, which has been a very good thing for us and able to form ideas that's needed for the redevelopment.
Thanks so much, Karen. Getting 500 assessments back in a community that is 781 units is no easy feat. So we thank all the work again that the Gilpin Informed residents did to be able to get that many responses. Next, we're going to hand it over to Dream to discuss the focus groups that we did as a part of community engagement.
Peace, Dream here. The focus groups that we did were arts and culture, land use, education and Gilpin, transportation, health and development, sustainability, housing, business, and safety. And those 9 themes were combined into the 5 themes, which were diverse economy, inclusive housing, high quality places, equitable transportation, and thriving environment. And what I thought of the focus groups is that they were very informative, and everyone who attended had a chance to express how they felt and they thought, and it was a lot of participation. The one dislike that I didn't like is that we need more resident involvement to help shape our future.
Thanks so much, Dream. And we've certainly appreciated everybody's insight in the focus groups and continue to invite you all to further discuss in focus the 5 themes that Dream just mentioned. So now I'm going to hand it over to our partners at the City of Richmond, Maritza, to offer an update for the draft plan.
Hi, everyone. The draft plan, we've been working, so over the past year or more, we have been taking all the ideas that all of you guys have given us, and we've been reading them and keeping track of them in a big Excel sheet. And one of our staff members took all of them and categorized them, according to those kind of the focus group areas. And that helped us shape draft strategies that then we brought to the focus groups. The focus groups helped us make those even kind of stronger and hone them in. And then that's where we are now, what we're bringing back to you and what's available to review on our website. So how does this all come together? So the plan sets a vision for what we want Gilpin to look like in the future, and and the whole Jacksonville community as well. And so why do we do a plan? Why do we set this vision? Well, ultimately, we want to get to a point where we are able to apply for more federal funding, the big dollars, the tens of millions of dollars, to help rebuild Gilpin Court in phases. And in order to get access to that funding, we have to have a plan for how we're going to spend the money, because people don't want to give you funding unless you have an idea of what you're going to do with it. So this plan that we've been talking about, that we've been working on for over a year, sets that vision out. So the vision is our end state. It's what we want the whole place to feel and look like in the end. It's an important statement, and we'll have Dream read it in a second. And then the goals kind of help us get there. So this vision on the next slide outlines was drafted with community input. Earlier, Alicia read a statement that was created during one of the community meetings. And so that, statements like that and others helped pull this together. So Dream, can you read it for us?
Yes. The vision of the Jackson Ward Community Draft Plan. Jackson Ward is an interconnected neighborhood that celebrates Black history, ownership, and culture while supporting a diverse community of current and future residents with quality housing, healthy spaces, and its community traditions of local arts, youth, education, and entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Dream.
My favorite 2 were quality housing and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I jumped in by accident. So Dream said that her favorite parts of this was quality housing and entrepreneurship. So there's different parts of the vision that may speak to each person in different ways. And we, through the plan, through the 5 themes, will be implementing this vision for Jackson Ward. So Dream touched on it in her remarks about the focus group, but there are these 5 themes and there's 20 goals. And so I'm going to give a broad overview of them, and then we'll put in the chat a place where you can find Sam, can you put in the chat the link to download all of the strategies that we have already written? So the first one is diverse economy, and the idea, the thing that underpins all these goals is that Jackson Ward is reinvented as a center for Black education, business, arts, and culture. We hopefully many of you know the history of Jackson Ward as the Harlem of the South, and as the Black Wall Street for the South. And we want to just build off of that. There's a lot of very strong institutions existing in Jackson Ward, and we want Black-owned businesses, and we want to just expand and augment that. So how do we do that? Well, part of building a diverse economy is making sure that that there's childcare in the community, and that K through 12 education prepares students for life after high school. So we have strategies related to that. We have strategies related to the goal of providing post-secondary education and workforce development. So beyond 12th grade, are you apprenticeship programs, getting access to other workforce? Maybe you have your an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, but you need more training, or you don't have those and you need training in specific skills. So we're trying to match, create opportunities and match Gilpin residents and Jackson Ward residents with those programs that exist to get into career pathways, not just a job, but a career. We also have strategies related to growing businesses, small, medium, large in Jackson Ward. And there's some strategies in the draft plan that Sam's going to share that focus just on that topic. As I mentioned before, Jackson Ward is bursting with really great tourism, arts, and culture. And so we are looking to just augment and expand that robustness in Jackson Ward, and also think about how businesses and the arts and culture that's in Jackson Ward can expand to the rest of the city. The next goal is focused solely on housing. And we really want Jackson Ward to be a national model for how to integrate affordable housing throughout the entire neighborhood. We want people to come back and, 15 years from now, be touring it and asking us how'd you do that? Wow, you guys did such a great job at making this great community, and the community was all engaged, and there's lots of opportunities for housing everywhere. So we accomplish it through 5 goals. One of them is creating diverse housing options. And so that means there's apartments, there's single family attached, there's duplexes, small apartment buildings, large apartment buildings for sale, and home and rental. And that you can have all of those types of housing options in the Jackson Ward community. Right now, the Jackson Ward north of the highway is all multifamily residential. There aren't really very little other options beyond multifamily residential. And so trying to think about that being more of a dynamic housing place. We heard very loudly, Alicia touched on this earlier, wanting to have pathways for home ownership for residents of Gilpin Court. And so we have strategies related to making that happen. And Alicia is going to touch on a couple of those. Making sure that residents are prepared. This is going to be a really big change of demolishing all of Gilpin Court and then rebuilding it in phases. So the demolition will happen in phases. And we want to make sure that residents are prepared for what is coming. So there's strategies related to there, and that they're also helping drive to be part of the process. Not that it's happening to them, but they are engaged and it's happening with and alongside and because of them. We have strategies related to displacement prevention. So we're talking about investing a lot of money into this area to rebuild the housing, to help rebuild infrastructure. And we don't want to see people involuntary displaced. So having to move out because they can't afford the place anymore. So we have strategies related to that. We also have strategies about thinking about places, are there opportunities for residents to, if they want, to live in other high resource areas in the city, and having there be affordable housing in areas that are higher resourced. We're going to take the questions at the end, but I see your hand raised, Sisha. We'll come right back to you. The next section talks about high quality places, and this is about everything that's like the built environment. So we want Jackson Ward's unique character and urban fabric to be preserved and incorporated into the redevelopment of Gilpin. So Jackson Ward south of the highway has a lot of the same buildings and urban form as it did 100 years ago. North of the highway, those all got torn down for public housing and for the highway, the construction of the highway itself. As north of the highway gets redeveloped, we want it to have, and this is what we heard from you all, to follow a similar development pattern so that it feels like the northern half of Jackson Ward is part of the southern half of Jackson Ward, because it like has a similar pattern of development. And that comes in with materials. It comes in with the size and scale of buildings, also pedestrian light fixtures. So the strategies in high quality places look at land use and zoning, at historic preservation. We have strategies related to that. We have strategies related to how we utilize public assets. So that's like the Calhoun Center. There's a whole strategy about, you know, as the city redevelops the Calhoun Center, what the city should be thinking of. We have urban design, which is that pattern, like what the outside feels like, you know, how wide the sidewalks are, where there's street trees, lighting, things like that. We have strategies related to continuing planning engagement, making sure that residents and people in Jackson Ward are empowered in the decision-making process and help drive these plans. And then there's also strategies related to safety and security. The Equitable Transportation section wants to make sure that everyone can move seamlessly between the different parts of the neighborhood and the rest of the city and the region through multimodal transportation network. So today, Jackson Ward has pretty strong transit access. We want to make sure that that continues. And so the 3 goals in the transportation section focus on Vision Zero, which is basically this idea that nobody should die when they're moving through a city, when they're being transported from one place to another. So that's reducing the people who die or are injured seriously in any kind of travel crash. So bike, pedestrian, car on car. So there's strategies for that. There's also strategies to improve the non-car network, to improve and expand transit, bike infrastructure, improve pedestrian infrastructure. And then there's also strategies related to the streets, bridges, and connections. So Gilpin Court is sort of in an island that's has one boundary at the top is the railroad and below is the highway, which sort of makes it so that Gilpin Court is like next to a lot of things, but really far away because you have these big transportation barriers. And so there's strategies in there about looking at building a bridge where St. James, right now it's an at-grade crossing with the CSX rail line, and seeing if you can build a bridge there, and then capping over the highway in parts to help reconnect the northern half of Jackson Ward with the southern half of Jackson Ward. And the city just won a U.S. Department of Transportation grant to look at that project closer, to do more planning for capping over the highway. And then the last theme, it focuses on thriving environment, and we want Jackson Ward to be a place where residents have sustainable and healthy places to live, work, and play. So there's 3 goals that hit on that one. And the first one is healthy people. And those are focused on that's like programming and things to make sure that people have access to like clinics and that they themselves are healthy. There's also strategies related to building green buildings that use less energy, or maybe produce energy because they have solar panels, or use water more efficiently. And then there's strategies related to creating a more resilient community to help reduce how hot it is by putting in more trees and reducing the amount of asphalt paved areas in a place. So that in a nutshell is our 20 goals that I've just described. And we have a draft list of all these different strategies that we've prepared. And the strategies kind of help implement those goals. So that's the what, like, what are you doing? what is the policy, the infrastructure, building a cap over the highway, you know, connecting residents to home ownership grants. That's the strategy. That's how we get there. So Alicia is, so these strategies that first we kind of workshop them with these focus groups. And if you are interested in like joining a focus group meeting, we're most likely going to hold another round of them in like June or so to help further kind of refine them after we submit the draft plan to HUD between draft and final plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Alicia to kind of touch on a couple of the strategies that are in the housing section, just for examples.
Yes. Thanks, Maritza. So for our first goal, we have diverse housing options. And to meet those, we have 3 different strategies, one of which is to build a variety of rental and homeownership opportunities for all levels of income. So we're doing, you know, low income project-based voucher units, rental, building homeownership, building different size of rental units, and at different levels of income. Next, the goal is for pathways to homeownership. And a strategy we've worked with the community on creating, for example, is establish rent-to-own opportunities, creating opportunities for homeownership for those who may not be ready yet, but will be in the near future. And our third goal for inclusive housing is resident preparedness. Understanding that this will be a big change for some families, we've created strategies such as providing families with customized services to help them proceed to the next step, whether it be to rental housing using a voucher or moving to private landlord or getting them prepared for that homeownership component. So for the next steps of how you can be involved, I'm going to turn it over again to Gilpin Informed resident, Stephanie.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Robinson, and I'm your Gilpin Informed specialist. And how to get involved? By showing up, by taking advantage of all the opportunities that we give, by coming down to our resource center to get all the resources that you need. You can also start coming to our Wednesday meetings like you are now, starting with 12 to 12:30 every Wednesday at the Calhoun Center, and get involved with the children of public housing more. And as for that website, you can scan that QR code, get the summaries and presentation of the meetings and material you need for upcoming events. Next one. Okay, and they just gave you a whole example of diverse economy, inclusive housing, and you can go on another website that we have where you can vote for these, right? Or
That's the next slide.
give them more feedback. But to be honest, it's mostly about showing up. It's about taking full advantage of the resources that we have here in the Gilpin Resource Center.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're
As she mentioned, it is not too late to give feedback. You can scan this QR code to provide comments on the draft vision and goals. You can also check out our website at jacksonmoorechoice.com to get more information and review past meeting materials and stay informed for future and upcoming events.